Hello everyone and welcome to another Tempo Strategy Legends of Runeterra Meta Snapshot Report. Cosmic Creations has just dropped, and the meta has been turned on its head at least for the time being, with players experimenting with new champions such as Zoe and Riven, or new landmarks like the Grand Plaza or even the Scargrounds. There has certainly been a lot of variety on the latter. Now that the final shard of Call of the Mountain is here, we can finally see what the full set has to offer, and it looks amazing. In this video, we will take a look at the top performing decks early in the format, but don't forget the format is still very young, and it is very likely things shift a lot in the next week or two. Before we start, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with more Tempo Strategy content. Kicking off our top decks this time, we have Tarkin Plaza, a new strategy brought to the format with the addition of the Grand Plaza. This deck is built around outvaluing the opponent through bulky units, invoke effects, and creature combat. Since the strategy is still so young, it is hard to say what the strongest way to build the deck is, but currently the frontrunner builds are Garen Aesol and Leona Lux. The strategy looks to set up board stalls with its bulky units and gradually trade up with the Grand Plaza. Eventually, as the game goes on, the Grand Plaza player will eventually develop a champion, which will further allow the Grand Plaza player to grind their opponent out through value. This deck is very hard to aggress down, as it has solid anti-aggro tools with Solari Shieldbearer, Solari Sunforger, and Star Shaping. On the flip side, however, this strategy also proves to be difficult to outvalue, as the sheer bulk of its units combined with value invokes can be insurmountable. Another Grand Plaza deck makes the top of our tier list, solidifying the card as what looks like a pillar of the metagame. Lucian Hakarim is significantly more aggressive than its Tarkin counterpart, going deep on ephemeral units since they synergize so well with the Grand Plaza. This deck is able to dominate the board throughout the game, often controlling what the opponent can and cannot block. With cards like Haunted Relic and Onslaught of Shadows, this deck is able to build a very wide board for cheap, and in a single action allowing it to set up monstrous attacking turns. One of the most dominant decks of the previous patch, TF Go Hard once again finds itself in tier 1 of our meta snapshot. To put into context TF Go Hard's power, in the recent seasonal tournament, it was the only deck to have multiple first place finishes in all 3 shards. It also took first place in all 3 shards. TF Go Hard is no joke, and though the recent balance patch did not bring TF Go Hard any new tools, it also did not drop in power level. This leaves TF Go Hard in a great place. While many players are experimenting with new and unrefined strategies, the Go Hard deck is a well-refined and powerful deck prepared to prey on lesser decks. What makes the Go Hard deck so powerful is its consistency and ability to tailor its game plan to the opposing matchup. If need be, the Go Hard deck can play for aggression or for control. This combined with the devastating ability of Pack Your Bags, as well as the card draw to easily find the Pack Your Bags, you have a recipe for one of the strongest archetypes in today's current metagame. One of the premier decks at the end of the last format, Fearsome Aggro is currently one of the strongest archetypes you can bring into the latter. This strategy is built around flooding the board with fearsome units, and most importantly, Mist Wraiths. This strategy excels at getting in cheap shots early and backing them up with a Haymaker turn or two to close out the game. These Haymaker turns are often set up by Frenzied Skitterer, which will allow the fearsome player to shut off multiple blockers for the turn. Alternatively, if you were able to get in a solid chunk of damage early, you may also be able to set up a win with multiple Doom Beasts. Your strongest Skitterer and Doom Beast draws will be enabled by Stalking Shadows, as the deck's coup de grace, which will revive a monstrous board of fearsome units, reactivating your Frenzied Skitterers and Wraith Callers for a finishing blow. An updated version of a strategy that was picking up steam near the end of the last expansion, Tarkin Allegiance is a strategy built around the invoke mechanic to generate card economy. Unlike the Demacian-based invoke strategy, this one is instead nearly mono Tarkin, playing Shadow Isles exclusively for Atrocity as a finisher. This build is able to quickly get ahead in card advantage with Zoe, unless the opponent is able to quickly remove her, which tends to be difficult. Outside of its wealth of invoke effects, the strategy also takes advantage of Tarkin's powerful stalling tools with Solari Shieldbearer and Solari Sunforger. For games that end up in board stalls, this strategy has an axe up its sleeve. The Sky's Descend acts as the deck's gotcha card that sets up a devastating one-sided board clear, often opening up for a game-ending attack. Of course, what would the metagame be without Soraka Kench? This strategy has been a staple of the format since its inception, though it takes on more of a dark horse role in the format as many players prefer to play other style strategies. Soraka Kench is a strategy centralized around creating a board stall with its bulky units, then generating card advantage through Tahm Kench swallowing enemy units, and Soraka healing him back up. This deck's primary win condition is Star Spring, but it is able to win through creature combat if it is able to get ahead and assert complete control over the board. Runeterra's premier ramp deck continues to hold its position as one of the more dominant strategies in the game, though it has taken a bit of a backseat in this early format as players experiment with new strategies. Feel the Rush Rush excels at skipping through the early turns of the game, often making developing for the opponent early difficult due to the threat of avalanche. Once the deck is able to get Trundle into play, it becomes very difficult for the opponent to fight for the board under most circumstances, as Trundle is simply an incredible wall. Once the deck is able to find the time it needs to ramp to 12 mana, the big guns come out. Feel the Rush will set up 2 monstrous 10/10 overwhelm attackers that will generally end the game within a turn. There are some ways a deck can prevent the attack from being immediately life-threatening, but often these plays are awkward for the opponent to make. If the opponent does survive the attack but takes massive damage in the process, the Feel the Rush deck has the option of Atrocity, which provides the deck another finisher, importantly at fast speed. Though the metagame currently is saturated with an abundance of experimental deck strategies, currently many of the top decks in the format seem to be the most streamlined decks from the previous metagame. This is fairly standard for a new format and should not be stressed, as it normally takes some time for new archetypes to get figured out. That said, we are already seeing the impact that Cosmic Creation has had on the metagame, with cards such as the Grand Plaza already proving itself to be a house in the format. Where will the metagame go from here? Only time will tell, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel to find out in our next Tempo Strategy Meta Snapshot. Thanks for watching!